Could any of you maybe give an example of some sort of very frustrating, knuckle-headed thing you've had to deal with during your journey as entrepreneurs? Masha's nodding away. You got something? Yeah.
I can share many examples, right? Because this is our business. We're helping startups to deal with compliance. So 2 weeks ago, one of our startups from both Dutch Basecamp and Ogni, they're based in France, and they have a SaaS targeting healthcare sector, right? So they work with hospitals, with healthcare, so critical infrastructure. So they had an incident, cybersecurity incident, and they spent 1 day trying to figure out what was the nature of the incident. And if you're familiar with the regulations, you have 24, 48, 72 hours, depending on the regulation. The guys have a team of 30 people. They were not sure what they're compliant with. So they knew GDPR is in there, they knew something about NIS2, MDR, but they were not sure. So imagine the stress of the CTO having to figure out the cybersecurity nature of the incident and simultaneously trying to figure out what is the incident reporting time, which bodies they have to report to. They operate in multiple countries, so what is the national adaptation of this, right? While trying to figure out this incident's nature. And the worst part was that while they were doing that, GDPR and NIS2 requires you to actually inform your business partners and customers about the incident. And for me, this is commercial suicide. Imagine releasing a statement to your partners in hospitals saying that we have an incident and they didn't have time to investigate it. So it was just not enough time. And thankfully, it was a false alarm, but they had to involve external experts, pay them a lot of money, bring them in, and to figure out what was the nature of it. So it was just really, really confusing, stressful because of different regulations. So they're on intersection of many of them, and they have different reporting times, they have different reporting duties. So I think it really showcases the confusion and frustration, even though I think regulations are good in that sense, because if they were not there, they might have ignored it altogether and not reported it. But the time frame and the confusion among that is really can hurt companies that they might never recover commercially.
Anybody else?
Sure. I mean, I have a list.
Yeah, right.
I mean, like
therapy session.
Yeah.
I mean, just for context, because I don't think any of you guys are founders here, but like for me and my co-founder, even just before we started a company, it took us 3 months to understand where in Europe we should start it, because there will be huge repercussions of selecting the wrong country. We ended up going with Estonia for several reasons. We started the company during COVID, so we knew we had to be remote first. I live in Netherlands. Netherlands was not friendly with remote first regulations. We knew we had to hire freelancers, and in Netherlands they were picky about how many freelancers, to what degree they do full-time, not full-time job with you. We knew in the future we wanted to have some kind of financial license. In Netherlands, it was not clear at all whether you could get it, you couldn't get it. It could take a year, it could take you 2 years. In Estonia, it was 6 to 8 months, and it was very clear what we had to do. And the nicest thing is that doing my taxes, not my taxes, my company's taxes, doing any notary things costs very little, and I can do it online. While in the Netherlands, you always have to do it face-to-face, and at least costs you 2,500 euros to change any dot or comma or sentence. So as a startup founder that had no salary, no money, these things are very important to me. When I started building the company, there were also repercussions on which country I choose based on the KYC requirements. In Estonia, in my company, because I'm not creating a bank account, I'm not holding the money of our customers, I don't need to KYC. But if I started it, for example, in Germany, I would have to ask for the passport, for the billing, for everything, which would kill my company. No one would onboard onto my app. No one would use it. So it was a death or a life type of decision. Just a starting point. I mean, I'm happy to delve into, but want to also give time to others to share their stories.
Well, just one quick one before I ask Chris. So if you then subsequently presume you're expanding now across Europe, right? But are you still running under Estonian law? So you're not, when you start having customers in Germany, do you have to ask them for their passwords or
no, I'm passporting the Estonian regulations across Europe, which is a life savior. Yeah. But for example, the things which probably we're going to touch is GDPR. Like one of the things that I was so confused about is that GDPR says that if a user reaches out to me and says, hey, in my app, you connect your card to my app, right? So if a user reaches out and says, hey, I want you to delete all of my data, I have to comply. But then if you look at the financial regulations, they say, Elena, you cannot delete all of your data of your customers because we need to have 3 to 6 months on hold the bank card that's connected. So you have to keep that information. So what do? Do I delete it? Do I not delete it? Who do I comply with? And what am I doing? Am I in the wrong? I don't know. You guys tell me, because I'm still trying to figure it out. But yeah.
Nice. Any lawyers in the room? Chris?
Sure. So I'm not a young founder, so I'm lucky enough to be in some of these discussions and ecosystems and know enough people that I can be informed. There actually is like an AI Act. Most founders in their 20s, they have absolutely no idea it even exists, as there's not any education. But even for me, I found out luckily early enough that we were able to modularize all of our products because we call ourselves the innovation operating system. So we have lots and lots of products, not just one product. Like if a startup has one tool, they want to build it out and then they sell it to big tech. That's a lot of startups in Europe. We're trying to build something much larger. So every product is a different compliance issue and how they overlap and how they communicate with each other, because our AI talks to all of our products for you. So we can get rid of silos. But what we did, I guess this kind of hinders us, but we're a global company, so we decided that we'll modularize everything, and we can turn things off we can push things back that are going to be much higher risk for issues or for compliance or make it harder. But we can turn things off by IP address. So that's what we're doing. When we can finally comply with Germany or France or wherever, I don't have a whole giant compliance team to do that. We'll comply, we'll make sure we're good, then we'll turn it on. Sorry, if you have a VPN, you can access whatever you want, but in those certain countries, you just won't have access to a lot of the tools until we're able to afford to be able to comply, and if we can ever even understand the rule, to be honest. They all mix so poorly. They're all written by different groups, I guess. So you have the GDPR and the NIS2 and the AI Act and the new PLD Directive, which is going to possibly kill a lot of companies. They don't play together. And so you have to have a real compliance team and actually understand anything. You're going to get fined from all different locations. And so we're really just scaling up. But as we're scaling, we're kind of hurting the markets we're going into because we're not giving them the full access to.
So it's basically restricting the growth of your business. Yeah.
It is restricting. Cool. People were waiting for the feature, but I don't have 50 people to write compliance documents for me and moderate all of the threads and posts and things like that. Not yet. I mean, give me a year or so, but not yet. So it is hurting our growth a bit. Yeah.
Chris, you mentioned this overlapping issue. I mean, does anyone else want to come in on that? Because, as you say, we've got AI Act, we've got GDPR, we've got a layer of regulation which don't always mesh. And is the digital omnibus process helping with that or not? Which is pretty what it's supposed to do.
I mean, no, to be honest. It's not going far enough,
right?
If I could be honest.
Yeah.
Well, for me, the point that I'm excited about, but it's one point. It's the PSD3. Like, I'm excited about technically that, banks have to be more, like they have to take things more seriously. Like, there's a lot of things that they can do that would screw me over, and I have no power against it. Just like some examples of, like, I don't know, if I wanted to use open banking, I cannot use it right now. I cannot rely on it, so therefore I have to do it on card rails, which costs me way more money, and my margins will be negative for a way longer time. I'm in a company that needs to seek VC money, investment money. I cannot be profitable yet. But if I could do it on open banking, I would have been able to be profitable way earlier. So the fact that there's more now streamlining and forcing banks to be more operationally kind of the same level excites me, and I really hope that. I also really hope that there's some kind of linearity with the SCA. So the fact that I have to think of all the different ways that a bank might authorize a transaction and have to make sure my flows are compliant with all of the different banks across Europe is a nightmare. So if there's streamline towards that, I'm excited. But it's a very small point, that is moving towards the right direction.
Robin, do you want to come in on your experience
No,
generally over those 15 years? Yeah.
I was just listening to the three of you sort of having your list of things you have to go through just to be able to start and scale a company in Europe. And we always get to, I love that question because I always ask the same, like, well, what did you experience? And the European Commission recently had a consultation running for everything related to 28 regime, where they asked companies in Europe to sort of give their own testimonial, a call for evidence, which was public, so everyone can go read what these companies had to report, and lots of horror stories. Imagine being a Spanish angel investor trying to invest in a German company and having to go through the notary process that you're not familiar with, or the other way around, right? But you ask all of these questions to founders and entrepreneurs, and you get a list of things. What concerns me more is that there's a whole generation of founders that have decided not to deal with that at all. And have said that, you know what, this is not worth my trouble. I'm going to set up a Delaware Inc. and be done with it, and I'll have a company in the US, operations in Europe. Or they say, I'm just going to go build my company in the US or elsewhere. They're not loud, they're not being opinionated, they're not doing X posts or LinkedIn posts. They're leaving, right? That's what really worries me, that you have a whole generation of entrepreneurs that basically doesn't even know or understand the rules, doesn't even go to the trouble of learning them, just decides not to deal with them for good reason. Who can blame them, right? At some point, you just want to build your product and build your company and scale it the way you want it to, and not have to deal with all these barriers that we're putting up.
No.
There's a real risk of people actually not knowing, because, for example, yesterday I talked to a company that they will, for the EU AI Act, they'll be in the not allowed category, but they're only selling in Europe right now. They have 100,000 users, and I said, well, in about 3 weeks, you're gonna have to close your company. Mm-hmm. They're like, what are you even talking about? I didn't even know this thing existed. So there's no education. And if you start telling people and educating them correctly, make it simple, of course, but if you start explaining things and letting the whole community know these things even exist, we might get through some of this.
Yeah, I think just as an example, there's two companies that I know of, one called Travel Perk and the other called Navan. They both started at the same time, one from Europe, one from the US. One IPO'd like a couple of weeks ago, the other one, there's no end in sight, just to compare. Same companies doing exactly the same thing.
And if you compare the philosophy of regulation, I guess, in those other jurisdictions, presumably they're just as careful. They don't want consumers to be ripped off. They don't want, dangerous things to happen. There might be a bit more, maybe they have more legal claim type structure if things do go wrong. But I mean, presumably all jurisdictions want some level of regulation, right? So what is it about Europe that kind of gets it wrong? Are they trying to be too prescriptive? Is it sort of like this idea, as you were saying earlier, that everything has to be, with your incident report, everything has to, you can't sort of just say, look, you must comply within a set deadline and do the right thing kind of thing. It has to be, you must do X, you then must do Y, you must then do Z. And this is all written down, Is that the problem?
I think like in the ideal world, regulations should be written like an instruction, right? So it's very clear, not like you're reading one paragraph and then 5 paragraphs later it cancels out and you don't know how to classify yourself. You don't know how to understand what kind of obligations you have based on classification, and classifications also don't overlap. So if you're an essential or important entity, according to NIS2, you're not necessarily high risk for a UAI Act, right? So this is very I think, complicated. So if they were written more like an instruction, that would help. But I think the problem of Europe is fragmentation, and the problem of regulations is exactly the same. They're so fragmented that they don't really have the harmonization among them. So even if companies want to comply, to understand who are you in these regulations is really complex, because you are many different parties, and the responsibility also falls on different parties at the same time. So I think this is the main issue. Like, they're too fragmented, written at different times, written with different definitions. So classification and obligations are really, really ambiguous.
And just returning to omnibus process, so I remember talking to one MEP who was telling me, there are sort of spreadsheets and there's 100 things to fill in, 100 fields, and maybe they've reduced it to 90 or something. Some bureaucrats actually going through saying, well, you can take these ones out, but not those ones, which I guess in the grand scheme of things doesn't really, it's a way, you know, it's a lot of commission hours spent doing something very minor, right? So is that your experience of it? That it's just not big enough, not dramatic enough to make a difference?
At the end of the day, who are we? We're people, we're consumers, we're not specialists in anything. So I think the principles of tech companies and how they build for consumer, like when we build for consumers, we go to build for the dumbest person in the room so that they understand how to use the product. Same notion here. Like even just, sorry, but the fact that I have to download a document, it's a very kind of old way of designing systems, right? Just do it the way that tech companies do. They talk to their users, they pilot something, they get immediately feedback. Within a couple days, they adjust it and they put it there. And the core experience should be as simple as possible. It's not about like even having like, you know, 90 Excel sheets or whatever, 91 columns or whatever it is. The whole thing should be completely restructured with the mindset of like, if the dumbest person in the room can get it, then we're good.
I think that's a very ambitious proposal, but you know, we'd like to see it though. Any other thoughts on that omnibus process? I mean, is there any hope for improvement?
I mean, it's going. It's something that at least there's a path forward. It's not going far enough. It's not simple enough. It's not transparent enough. I think if people would talk to more, I don't know, founders, tech people, all that, there might be a much simpler process. Actually, let a founder design it. That would be that would make the most sense. We know how to move fast, design something quick and easy, and get it out the door. You can test it, reiterate, and in 6 months you have an actual omnibus process. You know?
But then you have to go through comitology and trilogues and anyway.
Yeah. They'd have to comply with themselves, but you know.